With 2020 ending, there's been a surge of people watching videos of other people's language learning goals. If you're new to the language learning community, you've recently decided you would really like to learn this like really cool language, these videos are very intriguing to you. And as New Year's comes around, people are going to set their goals for 2021. Some people stick to their goals and achieve what they wanted, and sometimes even more. Others get close to their goals, which is good enough. But for the far majority, they end up setting themselves up for failure. Here's how they do it. 안녕하세요, cloud입니다. Hey guys, Cloud here. Be careful who you watch, because especially if you're new to learning a language, like if it's your first time learning a foreign language, it can be very detrimental watching people who set unrealistic expectations. We've all seen the video, or I guess if you're new to the language learning community, you might have not seen it yet, but videos of people saying, oh, I learned Korean in X amount of time, regardless of what the time is. Everybody's circumstances are different, so learning a language, whether it's hard or easy, in a certain amount of time, whether it's long or short, depends on the person and about how much time you're putting in. It's not a measure of the easiness of a language or how smart someone is, although being smart can help. It's more of a measure of how much effort you put in. Now, we've all seen those videos where it's like, I learned X language in 6 months, or I learned Arabic in 2 months, or I learned Korean in 3 days, or this is the way I learned Korean in 30 minutes. Or even sometimes some crazy people are like, I learned Korean in my sleep and then I forgot it and I learned it again in 1 day. Like crazy things like that. Some people might watch those videos and be like, oh my god, this person learned Korean in like 2 months, and here I am. I spent the first 3 months, and I can't even say like 2 or 3 sentences. And it can be discouraging, and it can even set you up for failure because you feel like, oh, this language is impossible for me. It should take 2 months. I'm 3 months in, and I'm not even anywhere close to like 1% of the language, whereas I should be close to 90% fluency. And that really messes up with people's motivation to want to learn the language. It's not just that actually, but it's also people that watching others set their goals can be a detriment, because you have to remember experience levels matter. You might see someone be like, I'm working on 9 languages this year, and they could be all different levels, but you might think, oh my god, that person is working on 9 languages. I should have some sort of schedule where I'm spending 3 hours a day studying languages. No, no, no. You haven't developed that muscle yet. Just like swimming, just like any sort of, I guess, martial arts or even stretching. Like some people can do the stretches and some people can't. And if you can't and you try to stretch yourself into that position, you are going to hurt yourself. It's the same thing with language learning. You have to take it slowly. You have to build up to that level. You can't just start off that way. You're going to burn out. You're not even going to want to study, and you're not going to learn anything. You might learn something and you forget it soon after. It's not very effective use of your time. It might be efficient, but it's not effective. And I can almost guarantee that it's not going to be fun. If you have fun, you're probably not listening to this video, and you're going to learn language anyways. And that's the best way to learn language. That's what I try to, encourage people to do. This YouTube channel and through the podcast is to get people to learn the language in a way that's just enjoyable to them, because that's just the most effective way to learn it. If you're enjoying learning the language, that's all that matters. But back to the topic. Sorry, I digress. Watching people set goals, although it can be very motivating, it can also put you down. Definitely, if you're a beginner in the field of learning languages and you still don't even know how you want to learn a language, you don't even know what parts of a language, like what sort of skills you need to develop. Setting goals, honestly, it's way too early to be doing that. I would recommend, instead of setting goals, you just explore the language. You say, this year I'm just going to explore learning X language, Korean, because this is primarily talks about, or not primarily, but we talk a lot about the Korean language. So just explore the Korean language. Maybe listen to it, watch it, learn some grammar, some vocab, talk to some people. Don't pressure yourself into be like, at the end of the year, I'm going to be C2, or at the end of the year, I'm going to be a B2, or whatever. I'm going to take the topic exam or whatever. Don't worry about that. Just kind of go in with an open mind, be like, hey, this is a field I've never done before. Let's say you've never rock climbed before, and this is the first time you're putting on a harness. You're not going to be like, I expect that I'm going to do the hardest, climb there's ever been. No, you're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to, climb, and then slowly you'll start learning more technique, and then slowly you'll start to know what to expect. You might be like, okay, 510s are actually very hard, and or 510s are doable, 512s are extremely hard for my level. But when you're a beginner, you don't even know what these levels are, so you don't even know what's easy and what's hard. And that can be detrimental because you might try to do the most difficult climb there is. And you're just like, oh my God, I don't get this. But that other person did it in 6 months. I must suck. I'm not built for language learning. That's not necessarily true. Again, it's a matter of you don't realize what you're doing is not at your level. You have to take it step by step. And again, I go back to the example of stretching. If you try to do a stretch you're not ready for, you could seriously end up hurting yourself. If you try to learn in a way that you haven't built that muscle, that practice, that regimen of learning a language, it's even a skill to know when to focus on something. If you're struggling with speaking, how to fix it. If you're struggling with writing, if you're struggling with reading, like all these things, they come with time, they come with experience, they come through research. You can look these things up. But just trying to go in and trying to match all of these, YouTubers who are polyglots or hyper polyglots and speak like 12 different languages, it's not going to end well for you because you're not at their level yet. You need to start with one language. And even that one language, maybe just dabble for a year. You don't even have to like actually study, just like kind of mess around with the language, flirt with it, see what it does. See what you find out about it. You learn about the culture, you learn about the people, you learn about their entertainment and their media, and then maybe through that you'll learn Korean much better. I wish I knew about Webtoons earlier because I think my Korean would be much better. But I didn't. So I started off my Korean learning through dramas. And I hate dramas. I couldn't bear sit through one. But, which I decided I wouldn't. And even if I wanted to, I probably wouldn't have learned the language because I didn't like that kind of stuff. Whereas you give me a webtoon and you tell me to read it, you don't even have to tell me. You're going to have to be pulling me off to stop to do something else because I'm going to be so engrossed in it. So it really depends. You really need to take that time to kind of discover the language and how you want to learn it. Again, everybody is different. The way I learn is different. You might love Korean dramas. And guess what? That might be a great source for learning Korean for you. And you can use that in multiple different ways. I'm not going to go through like techniques to learn using a drama, but you can use different ways to learn the language. Whereas for me, that wouldn't work. It would never work because of the nature of who I am. And for me, reading works, but for you, it might be the most boring thing in the universe, and you would never learn a language if all you had to do was read their literature or their whatever, I guess their comics. And that's something you're only going to learn through time and experience and just practice, just explore the language. So hopefully you're careful who you watch, you're careful what you take in, and don't be fooled by people who say, I learned this language in 5 days, find out how, secret hack to learning a language. Enjoy the language learning process.